Welcome, everyone, to Recovering Wholeness Together with Lynn and Andrea. I'm Andrea, and my pronouns are she, her. I live in Philadelphia, which is the traditional land of the Lenape people. I'm in recovery from alcohol, anxiety, disordered eating, loss, grief, lots of other things too. A little bit about me. I'm a licensed professional counselor in PA in New Jersey. I'm a certified professional recovery coach, a She Recovers designated coach, level 3 Reiki master practitioner, an artist, a mom to two beautiful young men. It's funny to say that. And I will turn it over to Lynn so that you can introduce yourself and our lovely guest.
Thank you. I've been fighting a cold, so sorry if I sound nasally today, everyone, but I didn't want to put off this recording. So I am Lynn Galliano. Pronouns are she, her. I live in the San Francisco East Bay area, which is the traditional territory of the Bay Miwok people. It's funny, Andrea, now I think of you as just Andrea from the Lenape area. Like there's no Philadelphia anymore. I've heard it so much that that's what, it's great. Like I love that. Let's see. I am in recovery from alcohol use disorder, grief, trauma, loss, anxiety, lots of things, lack mentality, the patriarchy, the political system, all of it. I'm a board certified behavior analyst. I mostly work with individuals on the autism spectrum and other developmental disabilities. I'm a She Recovers designated professional coach. I am a Reiki master practitioner. I am a wife, a mom, and a grandma, and a happy co-host of this podcast that I love. And we want to welcome Julia Hayes, who I met several years ago through She Recovers Foundation. And Julia, I'm going to read your bio here, is the executive director of Soul Center Spokane, a spiritual sanctuary for mindfulness practice and well-being. Julia is a facilitator of Recovery Dharma, a Buddhist-inspired approach to recovery from addiction of all kinds. Julia is the creator and author of Sati Seva. This is a mindfulness program designated or designed to reimagine recovery and support using 16 mindfulness practices. Julia is a longtime Buddhist practitioner. She is most inspired by the teachings of Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. You and me both, sister. I love him so much. Julia lives on an organic farm in Eastern Washington with her family. Welcome to you, Julia. Thank you for being here. Please
Oh,
feel free to share about yourself.
oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm in Soul Center right now. I'm sitting by our hearth, and if you can see right above me is this little prayer flag, and the little battery candles are a wee bit in the way, but that prayer flag says resilience, and it was created by a community member who, as part of her journey of recovery, found some art and specifically garbage. And so those are throwaway bazooka bubblegum wrappers that she painted and then made into this prayer flag that says resilience. Isn't that amazing?
Amazing.
Beautiful.
Amazing what people do when when they find themselves, when they rediscover themselves and how they shift their behaviors and their patterns. And I bring her forward because she also designed the cover of the book of Sate Seva. And she's
Show
just
us, show
been,
us the book because it's
oh,
beautiful.
this is
Yes.
this is
I
the book.
love it. It's such a beautiful book.
Beautiful cover.
Thank you so much. So, I'll tell you a little bit about the design because, in a mindfulness practice, everything is defined by intention. What is your intentionality? What is your motivation? So, Sate Seva itself, that word is two words actually. Sati means mindfulness, Seva means service. This book is in mindful service to ourselves and to one another. And my endeavor is to reimagine all the conversations, all the language, all the narrative around what it means to recover and what it means to be supportive relative to our habit energy, what most people call addiction, which I think is a very harsh,
Yeah.
limiting word because it keeps the mind focused on usually substances or food or gambling or intimacy and so on. But really, habit energy is a very human quality. We all possess it, and it has many, many faces. One of the most prolific is our habit energy related to the way we think and what we believe.
Mm.
We can become very fixed on that. And all you have to do is look around at the state of our politics to see the harm that is generated when we lack the curiosity, when we lack the training and the practice to be able to even examine our habit energy around our own mind. So this book is all about rediscovering that, reimagining what are we talking about. This spiral that you see here, so the spiral is an ancient symbol, and it represents the fact that we encounter lessons, mistakes, learning again and again and again. But rather than going around repetitively in a circle, a spiral means that we're coming across the same thing, but from a different angle, a different point of view. And then these little marks here represent the four directions of life and every direction in between. And then the four dots represent the elements that define our life: earth, air, fire, and water. And then it's encased in a circle, which is to represent the mystery of life. And this symbol, this design was also created by the same person who made that prayer flag.
Thank you for sharing that beautiful story and such a beautiful book. I do have a copy of it and I can't wait. I've started it. It's really good.
Well, I'll tell you, it starts out fast. It reads fast and it's meant to just draw you in. And then I slow the reader way down so we can get really into the practices. And um, they are inspired by the 14 mindfulness trainings of Thich Nhat Hanh and with permission from his publishing company, I was able to rewrite them and recreate them for the topics of recovery and support. And I also created two more. And how this book came to be was I had been offering Buddhist inspired recovery practices for a number of years, and the community said, Julia, wouldn't it be great if we could have a mindfulness group, a Buddhist inspired group for family members, for allies, for professionals, something Al Anon-ish, because
Mhm.
there's really nothing in that way. And I thought, oh, okay, that's great. So it started in about 2020, January 2020. And it didn't take very long for me to realize, maybe just a couple of months, to realize that I didn't like the segregated notion. People with abuse disorders over here, people trying to support them and love them over here, never the two coming together to have conversations unless it's in therapy. And I thought, why don't we just reimagine that whole landscape? Because I was finding that people in recovery were coming to this practice and they were hearing things from family members, not their family, but other family members. And it was really touching and hard and painful. So they were gaining something from that. Likewise, family members, not their family members, were hearing from people in recovery. And I thought, why are we not talking about this together in community, in a topic oriented, safe, everybody's practicing together their own experiences. And not only that, let's broaden the topic. Let's take the laser focus off the substance use disorder, off the alcohol misuse, off the marijuana misuse, off the methamphetamines and whatever it is. Take all of that away and just diffuse the light and come from a place that habit energy is universal. Welcome to being human. And it comes in all kinds of forms. And so now I've broadened it, and then I started going back to my training with Thich Nhat Hanh, and I thought, oh, why don't we use these practices? And then that just snowballed from there.
Tell me if we could step back just a minute, Julia, a little bit about your recovery journey and what brought you to the point where you wanted to do this work, where you saw this need and you're filling it.
Well, it was completely by accident. I'll tell you that right now. So, I had been in a position of community leadership for women, and I was doing a lot of spirituality and on my farm, and we would do these day-long retreats, and I did that for a number of years. And women wanted more practice. They wanted more mindfulness, they wanted more spirituality. And so an opportunity to rent a space became available. And so I was offering classes and workshops, and no one came. And then it was like, duh, women are really busy. They're raising kids, they're working full time. They may want to have more, but that doesn't mean they can have more because they're busy, right? And I thought, oh no, what am I going to do? I have this space that I have to pay the rent on, and really, like the universe is so, it's got such a sense of humor, and it's so divinely inspired because no sooner did I utter, "What am I going to do?" that a knock came on the door, and a woman said, "Hey, Julia, we're losing our space. I hear you're kind of Buddhisty here. We're losing our space for this Buddhist-inspired recovery. Can we have it at Soul Center?" And I thought, well, sure. Can I come to these meetings? I don't know anything about it. And she said, "Yeah, come." And I felt a little shy about it because I didn't have any issues with alcohol. I don't have any issues with substances. And I thought, do I really belong here?
Mm.
And but I wanted to vet it. I wanted to make sure it was aligned with what we're doing with the mission of Soul Center. And and then suddenly I realized the things that I was learning from the Buddhist practices specifically applied to recovery, I was like, ah, this is helping me understand this loved one, and this loved one, and this loved one, and this friend, and that friend. And suddenly my whole world opened up to this experience of the human condition called recovery, and truly addiction and trauma and self-soothing and maladaptive coping and all of it. And I thought, oh, this is amazing. So, parallel to that, my husband, who is a psychiatrist, was the medical director at a methadone program. So, he was working with very, very, very sick people with very serious co occurring mental health issues and very serious addictions. And so, we have an enormous library. And so, suddenly I just started reading and became the main facilitator. And that's just the from there it grew, and I just thought, what an extraordinary population of people, community of people. It just became this whole new avenue of service that I could offer to this community that I had never seen before. And everything we do here is philanthropic. So we do everything, we offer things for free. And the two main people who work at Soul Center, myself and my partner, we're completely volunteer. We're that privileged to be able to do that. And it's truly been one of the privileges of my life because it's an avenue of channeling my spiritual practice in a way that, as I said, I just never saw before.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the volunteer work that you do for the community. Is it a big community in Spokane? Like how, give us an idea of who you're serving.
It is. So we are the only place that offers this Buddhist inspired program, and we have a worldwide presence because we do everything hybrid, thanks to the pandemic, which is so bizarre, right?
Right.
And that's such a great example too of an Eastern perspective on life, where the Eastern worldview is nothing is ever one thing or the other. It's
Mm.
always a combination of both. So while the pandemic was this terrible thing, it also enabled us to connect on Zoom, like right now.
Right.
What an amazing thing. So we have meetings Monday through Friday, and we have anywhere on average um, 35 to 60 people online that join us, and about 20 people or so on any given day in the sanctuary. It's a beautiful, beautiful community.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about those 16 practices, what they, if you can either name them each or just talk about a couple or however you would like, but I'm interested in what the 16 practices are about.
So the arrangement of Sate Seva is in three main categories. And I begin with the spirit because it is my belief that the contemporary world is suffering from a crisis of spirit. We really are out of touch with the spirit of nature, the rhythm of life,
Yeah.
ancient practices like Reiki, all of that. So I begin with spirit, and then we move to the second category, which is the body, and really getting in touch with what's happening in the body. How can I use the body as a source of, as a touchstone, really, as a place of information that can guide me. And then I move into the mind. There are seven mind practices, and I really wanted to flip that trinity of mind, body, spirit to spirit, body, mind. And so in the spirit, there are five practices. The body has four, and the mind has seven practices. And so there are things like I begin with the cultivation of awareness. Without awareness, we have nothing. And then the book ends with the mindfulness practice of love. And throughout all of these mindfulness practices, weave in and out of one another. They're standalone chapters, but they also connect to one another. So you can't have love without awareness, and you can't have awareness without some kind of sense of love.
Mhm.
And there's chapters on the cultivation of space and ambivalence, nurturance, presence, pause, play, which is one of my favorites. I really believe in the power of play and creativity. And once people find that, there's something within the mind and the body that awakens and restores that limitless sense of joy and wonder. And it sort of adds some levity to the weight that can be so crushing when people are in active misuse of substances, especially.
I'm thinking back to first when I went to grad school and I was studying psychology in my first practicum and internship, I worked with an intensive outpatient program in community mental health with co-occurring population. And one of the things that was most challenging for me, one of the groups that was most challenging to lead was a group that was just about play. It was games. And I definitely now, maybe not then, identify as an artist. I was comfortable doing some sort of creative intervention, but just play, just having games out and available. Um, for some reason, that created a lot of distress in me. And it was so amazing to see how the patients, how the clients were able to really yeah, we're really able to finally kind of let go and share things in the context of that play, right? To see different sides of them where the coin was flipped and they were teaching me these games. And it just felt like this, like you said, this shared humanity. We were all coming from very different places, but we were able to connect in a way that was different from those process groups that were more um, psychodynamically oriented, or even, cognitive behavioral therapy with very specific interventions. I think that play and creativity is so important. And I'm wondering how that is something that you use in your own life.
It's what a great example. So what I see in traditional therapy is the necessary approach that's linear. So we have a goal, we have some strategies, we can we can find evidence to support are we meeting that goal, and it's usually a very linear type of approach, which is, as I said, necessary. At the same time, life is very nonlinear, and play is what activates that. It's what gives people permission to stop being so strict and rigid and to open up with a little bit of flexibility. So one of the things that I do in play, and this is actually something I think is really important to say, there's there's constructive play and there's also infantile play. And we're not talking about infantile play, which I think people can get into. And this is handing adults um, coloring books with crayons. That is that is bringing sort of a juvenile spirit to this really elegant quality of creativity. Games is a great way of doing it because you're enacting critical thinking and so on and so forth. What I do is I try to create situations like we have crafts we make I have this project that I do where I take a piece of wood and I nail in a shape of out of I nail in these little pegs in the shape of a heart, and people make this string art, and we all share strings, and it's just this textile, it's tangible, and really, what's really important about it is it helps people cultivate some concentration, some focus, and it really challenges that mind that has an inner critic and a narrator that is incessantly saying nonsense like, I can't concentrate. I can't focus. My mind is going a million miles an hour. And while that may be true, the truth is, with certain activities, the mind can focus and the mind can be trained to really concentrate on something and then produce something that's really beautiful and can instill a spirit of pride to share. And so those are some of the things that we do. We also do quite a bit of journaling in our activities as well. And I really like to encourage people to doodle and to just let their mind go because a lot of what is in the mind and in the heart is nonverbal. And it needs some space to come out. And so those are things that are really, really helpful, I find, in play. In the book, I talk about other silly things that I think are really helpful. I teach in this book something that I call instruments of peace. And these instruments of peace are tools that can be used and they're applied to each chapter. So, for example, one of the instruments of peace that I teach about is playing with your eyebrows. And it and as funny and silly as it is, it's an amazing practice. Like when was the last time you really played with your eyebrows? or noticed people's eyebrows, but so much nonverbal communication lives here on the eyebrows, on the face. And so there's wonder, and then there's confusion, there's disappointment or anger. And so to play with it allows the mind to and encourages a person's overall well-being, maybe to soften to the seriousness that is recovery and to
Mm.
have a moment of levity to breathe. Um, it's a heavy-handed journey. And maybe if we can take some of the pressure off for just a moment, we might find a little bit of relief and respite.
Look at these are all my
Lynn has so many questions.
no, these are my notes. Like I'm like learning so much. One thing that first I want to say, my mind is like pew pew pew. I'm gonna just give a shout out also to Andrea because I don't know if you know this, Julia, but Andrea runs a weekly women's art support group, a recovery group for artists, not for artists, an art group for people in recovery who don't have to be artists.
Right.
'Cause I'm not an artist, but
We're
it's
all
really
artists.
great. It's a really great space, and it's free, and it's every Wednesday at 7 Eastern. So that
PM or AM?
uh, PM. So that may be something that you want to sign up for and come because it's a great space and I always feel so much better and she leads that beautifully. So plug for Andrea there. Um Want to also just before we run out of time, I was really curious about you saying habit energy about what we think and a lack of curiosity to examine around our own mind. That is something that we could probably host a whole separate show just on that topic.
Yeah.
But if you can do like the elevator ride version of
Yeah.
what you mean by that, because I think that it's single-pointedly maybe the most important thing going on in the world right now.
Yeah. Okay. So, this is the heart of mindfulness, by the way. So mindfulness, sati, it means very simply present time awareness. What's my mind thinking about? What's my body doing? What's my mood? What are the stories I'm telling myself? Where did those stories come from? And so those are the four foundations of mindfulness: body, emotion, thought, story. And when we cultivate a practice of deep looking, in Buddhism it's called vipassana, and it's a very specific kind of meditation. And it just is this gentle approach of looking. And so the mantra that I created, and it's in the Satyaseva book. And if you practice with me for a minute, you'll hear me say it all the time, which is, wow, would you look at that? And you have to say it like that. You kind of have to spin it a little bit like Marilyn Monroe. Get it breathy, and make it fun. Like, wow, I just had that thought. Would you look at that? Huh. And what this does is it arrests the habituated mind that is so quick to be like, what's the matter with me? Why did I think that? What's my problem? What's your problem? And instead, it inserts just this momentary pause to go, huh, would you look at that? I wonder what that's all about. And then that is this threshold moment where you're standing on the side of familiarity, the habit energy, and you're about to step through the threshold into something new, which is this whole arena of curiosity and openness. And it's just this wide open wonder. And the second instrument of peace is to be able to say in mantra form, that's true and not the whole truth. What
Mm.
else is true? So,
Mm.
what we can do with looking at our habit energy. So, um, say for instance, I'm in a posture of self-doubt or anxiety because I heard talk about anxiety today.
Mhm.
Anxiety is we live in an anxious time. And so when I'm entertaining anxiety, it's usually coupled with self-doubt. And so there's a story that's going on there. There's an inner critic, there's some kind of inner archetype that's like you're not worthy, whatever. And so I'll just be like, "Wow, would you look at that? I wonder what that's all about." And so if I listen to that voice that says, "Julia, you're being ridiculous." Or one that's constant for me is you talk too much. Well, that's true and not the whole truth.
Mm.
So while I may be wordy, while I may talk a lot, I have a lot to say. And I have agency over what I'm saying. That's the truth.
Yes.
And
And
so to
people want
be,
to hear what you have to say.
and people may want to hear what I have to say. What a novel idea. And that treats that habit energy within me a little bit like, wait, what? And it breaks that cycle down a little bit, but it doesn't break it down with a hammer. It breaks it down with more like a polishing cloth, something smooth, something gentle, a much easier way to really allow the brilliance of me, of all of us, to shine. Because where one person shines, it is a radiant energy that allows others to shine too.
I think that language is so important. This is something just going back to my time in grad school, but also as I've moved through different recovery communities, as my own recovery, my own personal recovery, and the work that I do professionally has evolved. I love this terminology of habit energy. Is that something that it comes from you, comes from somewhere else? And how can we support other people in really examining their language and how that impacts not just other people, but it impacts ourselves, it impacts our own stories.
You're talking now about one of my favorite topics, language. And one of the chapters in the mind section of Satyaseva is something called wise speech. And wise speech is a foundational aspect of a Buddhist practice. And one of the practices I teach is, and it's an instrument of peace also, is get a thesaurus because words matter and words are fun. And when we can change up our language, it broadens our understanding. So, habit energy is a term actually that I learned from Thich Nhat Hanh, but he was not using it in the context of recovery. He was using it in the context of violence, working with violence and reducing violence. And I really loved that idea. And I thought, oh, habit energy. It's any habit and it's any energy. And most of the habits that we have that we're really grinding on are usually motivated by a pretty negative energy. It's usually trauma based, which is negative, and then we add to it with our own confusions, our own distortions, our own inflations. And so it's one thing to address the habit and to minimize it or to apply cognitive behavioral therapy and shift the behavior. It's another thing to change the energy. What's
Mm.
the tone? What's the language? What are we doing to shift the energy? And you two know this better than anybody in terms of Reiki. Reiki is energetic, but we have so much in our being that's energy, and so much is carried on the weight of our voice and in the language that we use. And
Yeah.
so words matter. The manner in which you speak matters, and it can change lives, truly. Does that answer your question, Andrea?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I love that. I love this topic. I think it's so important. And I really try to, when I work with clients, I try to be respectful of their beliefs and their preferences around language, but also to gently um, educate, encourage alternatives, just by using those terms myself about myself and my own journey.
Yeah. It's so good. I mean, and even I can't tell you how many times community members have told me that those two instruments of peace, the would you look at that and that's true and not the whole truth, what else is true, have really helped because what it does is there's a habit energy around momentum. We just get into this momentum of doing things and thinking things and saying things. And the minute we insert that little instrument of peace, that, huh, would you look at that? It just changes something. And
Yeah.
it what I love about it is it makes it a little bit fun. It's so different than saying, "What's the matter with you?"
Mhm.
It's like night and day, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And I think, I encourage clients, and I do this myself, to hit the pause button often, right? Like between the moment of, am I going to react or am I going to respond? And let me just pause, breathe, think, feel, notice. But sometimes we don't know what to do with that moment, right? But, would you look at that? That it gives some guidance.
Yeah, and it also gives permission to, because there's this habit energy that we have. It's very subtle, but I need to know. And I need to know right now. And I got to have it figured out. And why don't I have it figured out? And what's the matter with me that I can't figure it out? There's so much pressure there. And it's like, huh, would you look at that? I don't really know that. And and then what's beautiful is I don't have to know that right now. And maybe if I'm doing something creative, my mind is on something else, and then the answer emerges from a side door that we never even knew was there. And it's like, oh, there it is.
Creates the
Waiting.
spaciousness.
Yes,
So,
yes,
so that's
exactly.
important.
Exactly.
My favorite recovery tool, I think, right now is what I call the journalist. And it's when I literally visualize a second me, right? So I'm sitting here and then I like picture sort of my spirit moving out of my body and becoming a journalist and watching Lynn. So I'm the journalist watching Lynn interact with her friends Andrea and Julia. And right now, this is a really great place, right? But in challenging times in life, to pull back and be a journalist and be like, hmm, isn't that interesting? This is what happened, and a very factual sort of way of looking at this is what's factually happening. It takes the emotions out of it. So I think that's really complimentary to your line about like just being able to examine and do the Marilyn Monroe. Wow, would you look at that? Like I will definitely remember that and share it when I do share recovers meetings. I'm gonna steal that from you.
It's so good.
It's
You're
really
talking.
good.
You're talking, Lynn, about equanimity
Mm,
in Buddhism, that equanimous practice and the observer watching. And then the another great perspective on that is who's watching the observer,
mm. Yeah,
observing.
yeah.
And you
It
could just
goes on and on. Yeah.
yeah. And that's the beauty of it. Really that is the practice. The one thing I know that we're not going to get a chance to talk about, and I would love to talk about it because it's a book that I'm writing, is something that I spend a whole chapter on in the Sate Seva book, but it's the cultivation of healthy boundaries.
Mm,
Mm,
And so I'm
mhm.
just going to drop that in there as a something to talk about because I created a whole practice and image um, that is so helpful because so much of where people are with their boundaries is they make them too big. They're
mm,
too impenetrable.
mm.
And so they become a
Yeah.
place of self-imprisonment. and people create these enormous fortified places that make them feel safe, but really they're imprisoned by their own life.
Well, we'll have you back to talk about
Okay.
that. Like
Okay,
that, I
good.
mean, just let us know whenever you're ready to do that.
Okay.
Because we could talk for hours and I don't want to lose our audience by talking too much at any one given time. It's a lot to ask of anyone. But before we go, what are your offerings and where can they get your book?
Okay. So people can find me at souls, SOULS center.com. And you can purchase the book there. You can purchase the book on Amazon, anywhere that books are sold, basically. If you buy it from Soul Center, though, I gussy it up and I'll sign a copy for you.
Yes,
Um,
please. Let's
yeah,
do that.
I
yeah,
have one.
it's very fun. And and you can see all of our offerings at Soul Center. One of the things that we do that I'm really, really proud of is we record our sessions, our meditations and so forth, and they're freely offered. And I find this was kind of an unexpected thing. I meet people regularly who listen to the audio recordings and the video recordings for months before they ever go to a meeting. So I
Mm.
realized, oh, this is a soft entry for people who are maybe sober curious or wondering or not really sure, and it's too nerve-wracking to go to a meeting, or maybe they've had a bad experience. And so there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of recordings on our website. And again, they're all freely offered. And there are workshops and all kinds of things. So the Recovery Dharma meets Monday through Friday. Our schedules on our website. Sate Seva meets 4 times a month, the first and third Wednesday and Sunday of the month. And starting in January, we're doing basically we're reading the book,
Mm.
Right.
doing it in a monastic style where we'll read just a paragraph or two at a time and have a conversation. So it'll take years to get through this book, but we'll do it. And in December, we're just doing a summary of what Sate Seva is, what its benefits are, and so forth.
And that's an offering that anyone is able to join, even if
Yep.
it's their first time. Okay.
Yep. Anyone is welcome to join. We have these offerings are in person and online. The Zoom link is available on our website. I always encourage people to bring a friend or a family member. These practices are also for professionals. Anybody in um, professions where there's high burnout, compassion fatigue, moral outrage, empathetic distress, the Sati Seva practices are universally applicable for that as well. And they're very, very helpful. And I'm teaching a course, it's also on the website starting in January. It's a retreat style course that's going to go on for 5 months. Excuse me, 5 months, once a month.
I want to sign up for all of it.
Yes, your students are so fortunate to have you, Julia. It's
Oh, that is so kind. Well, as you know, um, I think I learn more from community.
Mhm.
yes.
We all do.
It's just such an inspiring place to be. I've never had a job that A, didn't feel like a job, and B, I so look forward to coming to every day.
Mm.
Yeah. And we just celebrated 10 years.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. It's amazing.
Mhm.
Yes. And I think that's a good reminder for folks because this is a difficult time of year for many to seek community. Because I think we really do heal together. And so thank you for all the work that you're doing to support people in recovery.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me and allowing me this wonderful opportunity to share this new and sort of innovative way of shifting the narrative and bringing a contemporary holistic view to the human experience, basically.
Thank you, Julia.
You're
Thank you, Julia.
welcome. You're
Bye.
We,
welcome.
we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you
Thank you
so much
so
for being with
much.
us today.
Thanks so
Bye-bye.
much. Bye
Bye.
bye.